The 30th of January, 1933, Germany. Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party, is appointed Chancellor of Germany and aims to lead the German master race to victory in the racial struggle against those deemed as inferior peoples, especially the Jews. The Nazi regime quickly begins to restrict the civil and human rights of the Jewish people and gradually excludes them from professions, businesses, and public spaces. After the outbreak of the Second World War, German policies vary from country to country, including direct, brutal occupation and reliance upon collaborating regimes. After the fall of France in May 1940, as part of the armistice agreement France signed with Germany on the following month, the country is divided into occupied and unoccupied zones. In March 1941, the Vichy collaborationist government creates a central agency, the General Commissariat for Jewish Affairs, to coordinate anti-Jewish legislation and policy. Anxious to ensure that material goods and assets confiscated from the Jewish population do not fall into German hands, in July 1941 they institute an extensive program of Aryanization, appropriating Jewish-owned property for the French state. However, for many Jews in France, this is only the first measure before they are deported and murdered in Nazi death camps. Among the deportees is a woman who belongs to one of the richest families in the world. Her name is Elisabeth de Rothschild. Élisabeth Pelletier de Chambure, known as Lily, was born on the 9th of March 1902 in Paris, France. Her parents were wealthy Catholics, and the family's ancestors included the Napoleonic general Laurent Augustin Pelletier de Chambure, who took part in Napoleon's campaigns in Prussia, Poland, and Spain. In 1923, Elisabeth married Marc de Beckeremy, the son of a Belgian aristocrat. Their son Edouard was born on the following year. In 1933, while still married to Marc, Elisabeth gave birth to a daughter named Philippine Mathilde Camille, whose father was the French Baron Philippe de Rothschild. Rothschild was not only a cousin by marriage of Elisabeth's husband Marc, but also a member of the prominent banking family and the owner of one of France's most famous vineyards, Chateau Mouton Rothschild in Poulac, in the Medoc. On the 22nd of January 1934, immediately after her divorce from Marc, Elisabeth married Philippe de Rothschild. She converted to Judaism, and the religious ceremony was conducted by Julien Veil, the Grand Rabbi of Paris. In addition to their daughter, the Rothschilds had a son. However, Charles Henry, born in 1938, was seriously disabled and died shortly after his birth. The loss of this child put an end to what Philippe later described as a partnership of great passion, but also enormous tempestuousness and despair. They eventually separated acrimoniously, and by 1939, Elisabeth reverted to using her maiden name of Pelletier de Chambure. World War II began on the 1st of September 1939 with the German invasion of Poland. The German invasion of France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands started on the 10th of May 1940 and became known as the Battle of France. Initially, British and French commanders had believed that German forces would attack through central Belgium as they had done in World War I, and rushed forces to the Franco-Belgian border to meet the German attack. The main German attack, however, went through the Ardennes forest in southeastern Belgium and northern Luxembourg, and German tanks and infantry quickly broke through the French defensive lines and advanced to the coast. Belgium and the Netherlands surrendered in May 1940. Between the 26th of May and the 4th of June 1940, more than 300,000 French and British troops were evacuated from the beaches near Dunkirk across the English Channel to Great Britain. Paris, the French capital, fell to the Germans on the 14th of June 1940. On the 22nd of June the same year, France signed an armistice with Germany, which went into effect on the 25th of June 1940. At that time, there were approximately 350,000 Jews in France. However, less than half of them were French citizens. Many of these individuals were refugees who had fled Nazi persecution in the Third Reich. Jews and other endangered persons fleeing oppression in German-occupied Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands soon joined them in the summer of 1940. Following the Wannsee Conference of the 20th of January 1942, German authorities prepared for the deportation of Jews from France and other Western European countries. The appointment of SS Major General Karl Oberg as higher SS and police head of German occupied France in March 1942 accelerated the process. An initial transport of more than 1,000 Jews left from Compiègne for Auschwitz on the 27th of March 1942. On the 29th of May the same year, German authorities issued a decree to take effect on the 7th of June that Jews in occupied France must wear a yellow Star of David. After securing the agreement of the collaborationist Vichy government, German officials and French police conducted roundups of Jews in both occupied and unoccupied zones of France throughout the summer of 1942. The initial deportation convoys from France carried only adult Jews to the east. This tore families apart as parents, grandparents, and elder siblings were separated from younger children at collection points and at French or German assembly camps. By late summer, French authorities altered their policy in favor of deporting whole families. After this time, transports included children and juveniles in convoys to the east. By the autumn of 1942, some 42,000 Jews had passed through the Drancy transit camp on the outskirts of Paris. A significant percentage of these victims were foreign or stateless Jews, sacrificed by the Vichy government in a vain attempt to spare France's indigenous Jewish population. The final destination of these deportees was Auschwitz, where the SS murdered the vast majority by means of poison gas shortly after their arrival. Deportations of Jews from France in the summer and fall of 1942 spurred significant protest within the Catholic Church, a mainstay of the Pétain regime, and among the general population. The brutal nature of the roundups stirred public anger, and the initial decision to separate children from their families during the deportation process was met with particular criticism. Between March 1942 and August 1944, some 77,000 Jews living in French territory perished in concentration camps and killing centers, the overwhelming majority of them at Auschwitz, or died in detention on French soil. 1/3 of these victims were French citizens. Following the German occupation of France, Elisabeth and her estranged husband were arrested by the Vichy government and the vineyard property was seized. They were then released. Philippe fled France, moving to England to join the Free French forces and support General Charles de Gaulle. Elisabeth, with their daughter Philippine, however, remained in France. Elisabeth was first arrested in 1941 for allegedly trying to cross the demarcation line with a false identity document in her maiden name Chambure. Allegedly, Fernand de Brignon, a high official of the collaborationist Vichy regime, secured her release. However, after the Allied invasion in June 1944, Elisabeth was again arrested because she had organized a charity event on behalf of the Jews rounded up in the Drancy transit camp on their way to the deportation. An alternative story has it that attending a showing of Italian courtier Elsa Schiaparelli's new seasonal designs, Elisabeth found herself seated next to Susanne Abetz, the wife of the German ambassador to the Vichy government, Heinrich Otto Abetz. Finding her proximity to Abetz's wife objectionable, Elisabeth changed seats, a social slight which offended the woman. When in June 1944, the Gestapo arrested Elisabeth, her daughter Philippine was with her. The two Gestapo officers fought over taking Philippine along with her mother, but one officer argued that he had a daughter the same age back home, so they left her alone. She was never to see her mother again. On the 15th of August, 1944, Elisabeth was deported on a train, which was the last convoy of political deportees to leave the Paris region before the liberation of Paris. 2,200 people were bound for the Buchenwald concentration camp for men and the Ravensbrück concentration camp for women, as 15% of those deported were women. The women, including Elisabeth, arrived at Ravensbrück on the 21st of August, 1944. Ravensbrück, opened in May 1939, was the only major women's camp established by the Nazis. Ravensbrück camp was staffed both by SS men, who served as guards and administrators, and by 150 women who served as supervisors. These female supervisors were either SS volunteers or women who had taken the job for the good pay and working conditions. Ravensbrück also housed a training camp for female SS guards who were taught by Dorothea Binz, the sadistically cruel German Nazi officer and supervisor who instructed her trainees on how to handle the prisoners that they were going to supervise. These prisoners would have to work until they died, and the task of their supervisors was to get the maximum amount of work out of them whilst they were still alive. Ravensbrück thus also became a training center or a school of violence for about 3,500 female guards who went on to serve either there or at other concentration camps. In total, some 132,000 women from all over Europe passed through Ravensbrück concentration camp, including Poles, Russians, Jews, Gypsies, and others. Of that number, over 92,000 women perished. When the camp was liberated by the Red Army on the 30th of April 1945, there were about 3,500 sick women, men, and children in the camp. However, Elisabeth was not among them. She reportedly died of epidemic typhus on the 23rd of March 1945, 1 month before the liberation. However, according to the memoirs of her husband, Philippe, she was thrown alive into a Ravensbrück crematoria oven. She was 43 years old. Elisabeth was the only member of the Rothschild banking dynasty to be murdered in the Holocaust or during World War II. Her children, however, did survive the war. Her son Edouard died in 1984, and her daughter Philippine died in 2014 at the age of 80. There were many tears shed for Elisabeth de Rothschild. Thanks for watching the World History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.